So here I am in the FreeCAD file for the shelving brackets that I made. We need to go to our spreadsheet, and I like to have my windows cascade so that I can see in real time what changes I make to the actual parts here from the spreadsheet, because the parameters we put into the spreadsheet will affect what parts will look like. So this top one correlates to the bottom and top pieces where you only put one dowel in and the other dowel is plain. And other side has no dowel and is plain. This middle one correlates to the middle pieces that you will have to put in a dowel right here and on the bottom to sandwich the board between them. And these two at the bottom are just test pieces where you would fit your dowel into the hole and or fit your board into this rectangle right here just to see that you have the right thickness, because printing these two test parts takes a couple minutes compared to make sure you have it right before you print these pieces, which take a lot longer. So that's why I have the test parts made. So now we're getting into the spreadsheet and all the parameters that we can do. The yellow parts we can change. The gray parts are calculations. So right now it could fit a 90-degree board in at all four corners. But if we want to change this down to, say, a 60-degree angle, we could, and it recomputes the shape right off the bat. So we could make a shelf that has a 90-degree angle, a 60-degree angle, and a 30-degree angle, and we now could export all those three pieces and make a nice shelf that has a triangle for a corner. We could also do 45s. Now you take two 45-degree angles and a 90-degree angle, and you have a corner shelf for maybe not as a dramatic corner. Or you could take 60s and print three of these and make a little table. So the beauty of this system is you do not need hardware for it to be a durable shelf. Unless you want to, you don't have to use any hardware to make a nice shelf or table or whatever furniture you want. You can make temporary pieces for projects that you're working on right at the time. You can make a nice shelf like I did for all my stuff around my 3D printer. If my needs change at a certain time, I can easily take that shelving apart and customize it to my current needs. You can also change the dowel diameter and the board thickness and the walls thickness. So you can customize it to the wood you have on hand. You could customize it to the wood you want to use. You can make it hold up to as much weight as you want by increasing the dowels to, let's say, an inch thick, where now we have the hole that fits in the bigger dowel, and the shape changes based on that. You could also say, I need to have a shelf that's a little bit longer, so I want to have it so that it doesn't have too much flex in the middle. So you could also change the board to 1 inch. So all these are at the actual thickness, not the nominal thickness. So we'll change these back to the values they were and change this back to 90 degrees. And these tolerances we have is we'll change these values down here, because if you print it with no tolerances, you might struggle with getting the dowels and wood in, but sanding them down to make them fit would not be the worst situation in this case. So if we wanted to take our thickness down, these recalculate to be the exact number of what we want in our actual thickness. So we're gonna bump this. Actually, yeah, broke it, didn't it? I think it did. We'll see. Okay, it's back to good. So that's a limitation with FreeCAD, that occasionally it does break. But I'm using the Real Thunder branch of FreeCAD, and it's much more stable for a parametric design like this, in my experience. We could also change our connection length. So this is where the dowels fit in right here. We could bump it up twice as thick. So our dowels are even more stable. I found that 20 worked for me because I was only using dowels that were a max length of 12 inches between each piece. So if you will stretch it out to have longer dowels, you might need to increase your connection. But I found that 20 millimeters worked well for me. Wall thickness, we could bump it up where it increases the walls and the bases and just makes it more stable. I found that 5 degrees was more than enough and was also durable enough, and these pieces are these are glorified holders, because the dowel will go in from, this is the top and this is the bottom. The dowel will go in and sandwich the board, so none of the actual weight and holding is actually done by the plastic parts. It's all done by the wood. So your wood is the weak point at that time. The plastic parts are just to hold the wood in place, so you don't have a dowel slipping over here and slipping off the shelf and the whole shelf falling apart. This just keeps it in there. So adding more width to the walls doesn't help too much with the durability. It only really, in my opinion, only affects how big the pieces look. So these chamfers we can change, but most of them are calculated exactly to what we have. So I recommend not changing these, even though you can. You could make this smaller and that was cut, not undo. But when you get higher, your FreeCAD will not be able to recompute, and you might run into an error down in this bottom left corner where it throws up the error where it cannot recompute, and you might have to close the file and bring it back up. These tests down here are just affect the test pieces where the insides always stay the same based on the amounts we put up here. But the outside width is what changes with this value. So we'll take that back to 5. And the wings are on this piece. That's just recompute field. So you can't go too high with this. Because I found having the wings on the dowel makes it easier to grab with your fingers and take it back up after you've tested. Because you do want to have the dowel go in pretty tightly to these pieces. The height affects how high our thickness will be. So if you think that you're going to print these edges over here, this correlates to your height on the z-axis. So I found 5 to be more than enough to be quick, to be durable, and be able to allow you to quickly check your thicknesses before you print all the pieces.